Alleluia. Om Mani Padme. Om. Allah.
Hello and welcome to Harmony in Diversity, a program that endeavours to encourage harmony and diversity across the wide range of faiths and beliefs here in Victoria by showcasing individuals and groups involved in interfaith and multi-faith activities. In today's program, we find out about the multi-faith chaplaincy at RMIT University. Firstly, I spoke to Father Richard Murray, an Anglican priest and the Senior Chaplain at RMIT. So Richard, tell me a bit about the RMIT chaplaincy and its multi-faith dimension and the history of it.
Well, the RMIT chaplaincy in its present form is a chaplaincy which undertakes to provide counsel, to provide advice, but more than that, to travel the journey with the students and staff of RMIT of any faith and of no faith. We seek to allow people to explore their spiritual selves with chaplains from a variety of faiths. We have chaplains from the various Christian denominations, we have Buddhists, we have Jews, we have Muslims. We have a chaplain who describes his tradition as the integral spiritual tradition. And so all of these people are here as chaplains and as accredited chaplains of the Council for Chaplaincy in Tertiary Institutions. They have undertaken to work with people of all faiths and none. This chaplaincy has evolved into this from an ecumenical chaplaincy. The chaplaincy, when it was first set up, sought to provide chaplains from the various Christian denominations and was headed up by a nun from the Roman Catholic tradition. Successive senior chaplains have tended to come from the Anglican tradition, not by any sort of establishment, but I think just that they are the people who have been recruited as senior chaplains. And I'm now in that position as the third Anglican senior chaplain in a row, but I don't see that Anglicanism has any particular mortgage on the position. And I work with my colleagues from the other Christian denominations, with the rabbis, with the imam that we have here, with the Buddhist monk and the Buddhist nun that we have on our chaplaincy team, with Roman Catholics, with Lutherans. We all work together and we are all committed to working with people of all faiths and people of no faith, people who are simply wanting to explore their spirituality. We're here to walk that same journey with them.
Do you find it easy to provide a service, if you will, to people with no faith?
No, and I don't think people who are coming to the chaplaincy who are people of no faith find it easy to come either. But quite often they're people who have exhausted the resources that they've been able to find elsewhere and have come to a chaplain just in case that person might be able to help. And I'd like to think that sometimes we can. And I don't know whether we do. It's one of the things about chaplaincy in all its forms. The chaplaincy quite often is ministry with no visible result. We don't know what effect we've had on people. We may never know. And so people of no faith will come to us to talk. Very rarely do they come to push their particular atheism down our throat or to tell us that we shouldn't exist or that we have no place in the university. All the sorts of things that we might fear and that people might imagine don't actually happen. We don't get a great deal of overt opposition to our presence in the university. I think we get a high level of acceptance, and probably the reason for that is that we don't go around trying to convert people either. That's not the role of the chaplain. I think that our multi-faith chaplaincy resonates with the multicultural nature of the university, the level of tolerance, acceptance, celebration of different cultures that is present among the university community members, I think is reflected in a multi-faith chaplaincy. It makes more sense to people. People who don't necessarily understand what a chaplaincy is or necessarily feel a great need for one, feel that it does reflect that multicultural character of the university, and therefore, yes, I think we probably do get a greater level of acceptance, and hopefully that allows us to do more for the community.
What sort of things do you provide on a practical level for the students at the university in terms of a spirituality and a cross-faith dimension?
We provide everything from chaplains just being around the place, being obvious, and providing a point of contact for people who wish to talk to them about anything they want to talk about, to facilitating discussion groups, facilitating study groups for people of particular faiths and of different faiths. We try to promote multi-faith and interfaith dialogue through the various societies that exist in the university and providing them with facilities, spaces, and to some extent expertise. We promote a variety of interfaith activities that students will pick up and run with themselves, and I hope that we're seen as being people who will facilitate that sort of work in a place that you can come to get help with doing those sorts of things. When crises strike, like the massacre in Norway, which struck just before I started my work here, this chaplaincy provided a service where students from the Norwegian community at RMIT, their friends and their supporters could come together, share their grief, share their wonder and confusion, also to allow their hearts to go home where they couldn't go, as they grieved, as they felt all sorts of different feelings. And we were able to have a place and a time for 65 or so people to come in here into this spiritual centre in the calm and peace of this place, to pray together and just to be together, to support each other. Such services have been provided for the earthquake in New Zealand, for the tsunami and earthquake in Japan, and we're here for that.
Welcome back to Harmony in Diversity. One of the many other chaplains at RMIT is Muslim Imam Riad Galil.
Now, the work of a chaplain at RMIT never ends. Staff and students are our charges. All we offer is meant for the betterment of lifestyle and spiritual outlook of our charges. Professor Boma of Monash University and others insist that there is a global resurgence of spiritual matters. More and more people, apparently, particularly in academia, seem to place more emphasis on developing their spiritual faith, beliefs, and seem to devote time and effort in this regard. We at RMIT came up with a blueprint that recognized and celebrates our unique, culturally and socially diverse community.
Now, to start off with, chaplains in here are for everyone. I mean, it doesn't really matter what the person, what faith the person is coming from. He or she would be here to serve everyone, disregarding their belief or unbelief. I mean, they are whether staff or students, they're welcome to use our time and our resources in order to facilitate life for them.
Give us a brief outline of the main points of the Muslim faith as you understand them.
Right. The Islamic faith is not a new faith at all. We believe that it's the same faith that Adam and Eve have practiced since they started their living on earth, and then other prophets of God, Abraham, Moses, Jesus Christ, and Muhammad, peace be on all of them, have renewed the message to the people, because people tend to forget. And as a result, Almighty God has sent us so many prophets in order to assert the religion of God that is judged or is ruled by the Ten Commandments. That's the crux of the teachings of the religion. So is the Islam. You find that the Ten Commandments occupy a very central place in the faith of Islam.
What does your faith mean to you, and how does this relate to how you interact to people of other faiths?
Faith means peace, inner peace, or trying to get inner peace. And that's quite valuable, very valuable to the individual, be able to conduct his life, having settled many of the issues within himself. This is related to the way I interact with people, is that I try to spread peace, perhaps, around me, and try to deal with people peacefully, and encourage them to reciprocate in that way.
What does your faith mean to you, and what does it mean for you to interact with people of other faiths?
My faith for me is the very essence of what I do, and I suppose how I do it. My faith informs my relationships, my faith informs my actions, my worldview, my moral framework, my ethical behaviour, all of those things. So as a Christian, I frame my life according to my understanding of what a Christian is expected to do, what Christ expects me to do as a Christian. When I'm dealing with people of other faiths, I see them coming from the same sort of grounding. They ground their relationships, they ground their ethics, their behaviour, their life view is grounded in their faith. And I think people of faith recognise in each other that grounding in faith. And that gives us a very good starting point from which to work when we're working together, when we're working together for a common goal. Working with the other chaplains in this chaplaincy, I see that grounding of faith as being the motivation for their work in the chaplaincy. Remembering that most of them are volunteers. They volunteer out of their faith vocation, and I share that with them. And so that gives us a starting point. As we travel on, we find other points of commonality that draw us together as people of faith. One of the things that I find very useful in terms of working with people from other faiths and relating to them is sharing my attitude to suffering, to the human condition, if you like. How do we cope with the human condition? How do we see suffering as part of life? And that gives us an area of commonality, because it is, in fact, something that we share as human beings, but it's also something that we share theologically. All faiths deal with suffering in one way or another, and it gives us a point of discussion. It sometimes gives us a point of difference, and we should never be afraid of difference. If we subscribe to a view that says, well, at heart we're all the same, or at heart we all believe the same things, then I think we're being grossly unfair to our own faith and we're being insulting to the faith of others. It is far too shallow a view, and it's not a view that can stand up. It can't stand up theologically, it can't stand up in human terms. But we can share a discourse about common experiences and about experiences of common phenomena.
Do you think there is a common divine element? Is there a commonality, something that we can all focus on and say, yes, that is pointed towards the divine?
It seems to me that there is. There's the ethical imperative, sometimes known as the golden rule, I think is something that all faiths, I was going to say subscribe to, and I don't know that subscribing to is quite the word, but it is something that emerges from the theologies of all of the faiths whose adherents I've spoken to, and that is that the way in which people relate to each other, and summed up, of course, that comes down to treating other people as you want to be treated yourself, having a love of self which informs a love of other people, as we Christians tend to put it. That golden rule seems to run as a golden thread, if you like, through those of faith. And when people who are not people of faith want to subscribe to it, they don't find a basis upon which to build it. I think it is the divine shining through, if you like, as it must do. The divine will always shine through the human, no matter how hard the human tries to block out that light.
Welcome back again to Harmony in Diversity. As well as being a chaplain at RMIT, Riad Galil is also the new president of the JCMA. I asked him to speak a bit about the JCMA and his involvement in it.
JCMA, the Jewish Christian Muslim Association, has been going quite strong since 2003. We have got a number of activities that involves the membership, obviously, and friends. We have a 4-day conference. Actually, we're having it lately at Palotti College in the hills near Warburton. And we have at the moment, we have the women's conference in February. And we have a very strong schools program that involves both secondary and primary schools. We do have other activities such as seminars right through the year, particularly for those people who can afford to go for 4 days live-in conferences. We had a number of these, and we intend to have a series of these shortly. And we also do get involved in local and international issues. We had, or some Muslim group had a problem with the council and the residents of a certain area, and it was the Jewish community that has actually resolved the whole thing, because they were present on the scene as such, and they were able to advocate for the Muslim community, and actually they settled the matter to their satisfaction. So the dialogue between or amongst the Abrahamic religions, there's so much in common between them in every respect, whether you're talking values, we're talking dogma, we're talking, you find that we agree on most of these aspects. The only area where we differ in will be in our visualization, our conception of Almighty God. This is the only area where we differ, and we love to argue with one another and dialogue with one another on this very issue, with the aim that we get to understand each other's point of view. That's very important. might not agree with each other's sort of point of view, but at least we understand where it comes from. So don't have these sort of nagging queries and nagging sort of suspicion as to where these things are coming from and how would they eventually affect us.
How do you see this experience of the Jews, Christians and Muslims in the JCMA being able to impact on the relationships with other faiths, Buddhist, Hindu, etc.?
Yes. Actually, Paul Thompson, Reverend Paul Thompson has started a new experience. We have a certain methodology of conducting, particularly the secondary school program, which will involve obviously a Christian, a Muslim and a Jew, presenters. Now, Paul actually was able to drop one of the three and take in a Sikh. So the three had much the same sort of arrangement, much the same sort of concept used for the three of them. We actually intend to promote this particular sort of concept to involve more and more of other faith communities. So there is a thought at the moment that we still have a lot to discuss amongst ourselves rather than going out to the wider community. But I think many of us will probably take the banner out to the community and involve more and more other faith communities. We do participate in quite a number of meetings and other activities that will involve other faith communities, and we appreciate that, and we do positively take part in these efforts.
How has your involvement with the JCMA helped you as a chaplain here at the RMIT Multi-Faith Chaplaincy?
I was actually a member of JCMA before I became a chaplain, and as it happened, some of the people from RMIT met with me in one of the conferences, and that's how they invited me to become a chaplain. I had never ever thought of becoming a chaplain actually before, and that was the connection. I find that this is a very good connection between the two, and my work at the university is similar to some extent to what I do with JCMA at JCMA, and I'm hoping that we'll have more interaction between the two organisations in the future.
That's all for our program today. For more information, and if you want to see this episode again, visit our website, harmonyindiversity.net. Goodbye for now.
Baha'u'llah, Shanti Om, Allahu